صلى على محمد وآل محمد. صلى على محمد. Inshallah, may your mornings be accepted. I think it's Allah.
مما خلق من ماء دافق يخرج من بين الصلب والترائب إنه على رجعه لقادر يوم تبلى السرائر فما له من قوة ولا ناصر والسماء ذات الرجع والأرض ذات الصدع إنه لقول فصل وما هو بالهزل إنهم يكيدون كيدا وأكيد كيدا فمهل الكافرين أمهلهم رويدا بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم سبح اسم ربك الأعلى الذي خلق فسوى والذي قدر فهدى والذي أخرج المرعى فجعله غثاء أحوى سنقرئك فلا تنسى إلا ما شاء الله إنه يعلم الجهر وما يخفى ونيسرك لليسرى فذكر إن نفعت الذكرى سيذكر من يخشى ويتجنبها الأشقى الذي يصلى النار الكبرى ثم لا يموت فيها ولا يحيا قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Thank you so much, Brother Hassan. One last reminder for those who would like their kids to attend a class or activities session, there's one on the women's side in the side room. And then the back side room for the women, there's some space if you want to do nursing or if you want to just converse and don't want to disturb other people. For the men's side, we also have a small office if you would like to converse. For the men, that's an option too. But so if anyone would like to stay in the session, let's try to be mindful of others because they're here to partake, and inshallah, let's not disrupt that. Without further ado, inshallah, I ask with the loud salawat that we welcome our guest speaker, Dr. Takim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala.
سورة الباركة الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، خاتم النبيين، رحمة للعالمين بالقاسم محمد. وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين. صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله، صلى الله عليك يا ابن رسول الله. روحي وجسمي وأرواح العالمين لك الفداء. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وقوله الحق: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والذين جاهدوا فينا لنهدينهم سبلنا. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله. I've been talking about ethics and spiritual ethics so far, but I'd like to change the subject a bit now, especially in light of what's happening in Afghanistan and other parts of the world. I don't think you need me to remind you what is happening in Afghanistan and the dangers that are being posed to people in general, and especially the Shias. We know very well what their view, the Taliban's view, is about the Shias. But my main topic is what is called Islamic fundamentalism, because this is a whole group, the ISIL and Al-Qaeda and Taliban and Boko Haram, they're all considered as Muslim fundamentalists. So I want to consider, what does Islam have to say about fundamentalism itself? To start with, where does the term fundamentalism appear? Where does it come from? It's not an Arabic concept. It's not an Islamic concept. The term fundamentalism was actually coined and started in Niagara Falls around 1895. That's where the roots of the term lies, because it was at that time that Christianity was being attacked in different ways. And in order to go back to Christianity, they went to the fundamentals of Christianity, hence the term fundamentalism. In other words, the basic beliefs. Why was Christianity being attacked? So, for example, around the 1880s, if you'll recall, there was the concept of Darwinism. Darwin actually attacked the idea that human beings evolved or they were created out of nothing, the way that the Quran and the Bible says. Darwin said that the human beings evolved out of apes. Now, whether he was right or wrong is not really my point here. The point was, it was attacking Christian belief. There was another reason why Christians were concerned at that time. This was the idea of what is called biblical criticism. German scholars in the 80s, 1890s started scrutinizing the Bible, and they were showing discrepancies and contradictions within the Bible itself. This has been a long and a deep subject which I do not want to get into, but clearly Christianity was under attack at that time. And there were other reasons why Christianity was also being attacked. The Industrial Revolution, the Renaissance, Enlightenment, all these things doubted the function of God. There was more emphasis on human beings than on the divine. So all of these things led to Christians going back to the fundamentals. Conferences were held in Niagara, and the fundamentalists, they reaffirmed or they reasserted the belief in the Bible as the infallible word of God. They reasserted the belief in the virgin birth of Jesus, in the bodily resurrection of Jesus, and so on. But a key term to fundamentalism, and this is important for our understanding, is what we call literalism. Literalism means that you cannot reinterpret something. If something says in the book, whether it is the Quran or in the Bible, you take it literally. There is no metaphorical understanding. In other words, so for example, in the case of the Quran says, فَإِنَّمَا تَوَلَّوْا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ. Wherever you turn, you'll find the face of God. The Quran says it. So for those literalists and fundamentalists, the Quran says that you will find the face of God. It means that God has a face. Of course, we do not believe that, but many of other Muslims do. The Quran says, Yadullah fawqa aydiyakum, that your hand, the hand of God is above your hand. When you give the bay'ah to the Prophet, the hand of God is above your hand. So the Quran says the hand of God. So God must have a hand then. So there are those who believe, and it is there amongst the Ahlul Sunnah, that on the day of Qiyamah, you can even see God, na'udhu billah. They will say that you can see God who will put his foot in hell. And he'll say, Hal min mazid, is there any more room? This is not our belief, but this is what we mean by literalism. Literalism means to take the literal word. Now, how does this apply to Islam? To start with, as I said, the term fundamentalism did not come from Islam at all. It came from the West, which was imposed on the Muslims. In fact, the many a time you find that the West create ideas or terms, and then it imposes it on others. And I'll give you an example of how they manipulate the language in order to show Muslims are inferior and they are superior. I used to live in England for a long time in the 1970s. And you may recall, some of you, at that time there was a clash between United Kingdom or Britain and Ireland. You recall the Northern Ireland issue of whether Northern Ireland should be part of England, part of Britain or not. There was a lot of bombs being kept in London itself. There were people who were dying in the streets, bombing and so on. People were being killed. Who was doing it? The Irish were. The people of Ireland, because they wanted freedom from the British. We don't want to go into the politics, but the term that they used was Irish terrorists. They never used the term Catholic terrorists. But when a Muslim does it, when Muslims put bombs, suddenly becomes Islamic terrorists. They don't say, for example, Afghani terrorists or Iraqi terrorists. Suddenly the term Islam is brought in. To give you another example of how they use and manipulate languages. When India built an atom bomb, it was called an Indian bomb. When Pakistan did it, you remember what it was called? An Islamic bomb. So suddenly even bombs become Islamic. Even bombs have religion now. See how they manipulate the terms, the way that they want to do it. The Crusades, for example, the Crusades started in the year 1099. And it was started by the Pope at the time, Pope Urban II. He is the one who told the people in France that go and kill those heathens. Heathens means kafir. He was referring to us Muslims, because Muslims were living in Jerusalem at that time. Go and kill them, and if you are killed in battle, I guarantee you heaven. I guarantee you heaven. This was the Pope speaking in 1099. Because of the Pope, thousands of people went from Europe up to the Holy Lands, up to Jerusalem and the surrounding areas. Thousands of people were killed. 40,000 people in Jerusalem alone. Muslims were killed, Jews were killed, fellow Christians from the Christian Orthodox Church were killed also. Yet you never heard the term Christian terrorists. You heard the term crusaders, yes, because they were the crusaders. What I'm trying to show you is how the West manipulates terms. Similarly, there is no such thing as Islamic fundamentalism. We are using it because the West has imposed it on us. If you look at the word fundamentalism or fundamental, the equivalent of fundamental in Arabic is what? Usul. Anybody who believes in usul ad-din is a fundamentalist. You believe it, I believe in the usul. So are we all Islamic fundamentalists? The answer is no. Because usulis in, especially Shia Islam, are the opposite of what they mean by fundamentalists. Whether fundamentalists are literalists, usulis actually reinterpret things. Fundamentalists are very narrow-minded, usulis are actually broad-minded. Usulis are the opposite of what they mean by fundamentalists. But unfortunately, as I said, they use a term and then impose it on others to suit them. Usuli, by the way, or fundamentalism in our understanding is a very positive term. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. But there is also another brand of Islam, and this is a small portion of Muslims, by the way, who are the literalist portion, who believe in the literal understanding of the text. As I said, when the Quran says God has a face, they believe God has a face. These are the Wahhabis, many of them, by the way. The Wahhabis, their origins lie with a person by the name of Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Ahmad ibn Hanbal died in the year 855. He did not believe in reasoning at all. He says reason is faulty. So you just believe in hadith. Whatever the hadith says, even if it's weak hadith, you believe in it. It is said, I don't know how far it's true, that Ahmad ibn Hanbal did not eat a watermelon ever. And he was asked, why don't you eat a watermelon? He says, because there's no hadith on it. Because there's no hadith, you don't eat it. Maybe there was no watermelon at the time of the Prophet, or maybe he did not like it. Because of that, this is the understanding, the very literal understanding. He, that is Ahmad ibn Hanbal, collected 400,000 hadith, and he is the originator. The origins of Wahhabism comes from him. Therefore, the main school in Saudi Arabia is not Shafi'i, Maliki, Hanafi. It is the Hanbali school. And that's why anything you do that they do not like is bid'at. If you even touch the Kaaba, it is bid'at, and they'll hit you for it. The problem with fundamentalists, the way that we understand it, is this. They have a very narrow understanding of Islam, and you'll appreciate it when you see what the Taliban and others are doing. For them, if it's either their Islam or no Islam. It is as if they claim that God has spoken to them and that their vision, their understanding is the only possible understanding of Islam. My sisters and brothers, remember this much. We have to separate between the voice of God, the voice of Allah, and the voice of human beings. Because I say so or people say so, it doesn't mean that Allah is saying so. What Allah says is in the Quran. But what people say, people interpret, is not the voice of God. But for these fundamentalists, they have a particular brand or particular understanding. It's as if Allah talks to them only. So there is no way that they can compromise. This is what we mean by religious dictatorship. Dictatorship in the name of religion. And they use the very powerful tool, the tool of takfir, it's called. Takfir means considering somebody a kafir. What they do is this. They draw boundaries around Islam. The boundaries are defined by them. It is their understanding. So you are either in Islam, their understanding of Islam, or you are out of Islam. To be very honest, not all Muslims are the same. Not all Muslims understand Islam the same way. Bin Laden's Islam is not my Islam, not your Islam. We wouldn't want to belong to Islam which Bin Laden does. But therefore, because of that, for them, it is either their Islam or no Islam at all. And you will see this, that Islam itself is embedded in a very, what we call parochial. Parochial is very narrow vision, narrow understanding. And I'll give you one or two examples to show how and why they destroy Islam. They subvert, they change Islam. I do not know whether you have experienced this on email many a time. Suddenly, without even you knowing it, you are part of a group. You keep getting emails from, you never even subscribe to it. And suddenly you're part of this group. They just put people on that group. There was this Jamaat-e-Islami in Pakistan, I think. Suddenly I appeared on their group. And they sent an email. Listen to this and you will see what we mean, how they totally become ridiculous. They sent an email just before Eid that normally, you know, when you and me eat meat on the day of Eid, we embrace each other. Kullu amin wa antum bi khair, ya Eid Mubarak, Eid Shema Mubarak, and so on. They said, no, this is the fundamental. You should not embrace yourself. You should not say Eid Mubarak at all, because the Prophet never embraced. The Prophet did not say Eid Mubarak. All you have to do is just shake hands, and that's it. This is their understanding. Shake hands, and that's it. And at the end of that email, they said Eid Mubarak. So me being me, I like to tease these people, you know, I mean, it's so ridiculous. I send them an email back. I said, but you've just done a bid'ah yourself. They said, how? I said, because you said Eid Mubarak. The Prophet never said Eid Mubarak. And they wrote back, said, sorry, you are right. We need Eid bid'ah. We're sorry about that. You see how ridiculous it gets? Or they issue fatwas, which frankly do not make sense. These are called fatwa hurlers. These people who are fundamentalists. Alhamdulillah, we're not like that. They will tell you how to, when you walk on the streets, you have to fold your trousers. Haven't you seen that? They fold the trousers up to their ankles or up to half the way, the knees. Why? Because the Prophet used to do so. But the Prophet did it because there was dust. There were no tar roads in Medina. You're living in Phoenix. You don't have tar roads and donkeys. Do you have donkeys and mules here? Maybe the Grand Canyon. But I haven't seen one on the highways here yet. So if you have that, then how can you say that we should go around folding our trousers in Phoenix? It doesn't make sense. But for them, it's what we mean by literalists and so on. Even if you remember, there was a group, there still is a group called Hizb ut-Tahrir. This is one of these fundamentalist groups. Hizb ut-Tahrir believes in the Khilafat. In fact, many of them, these people who believe in the Khilafat, they are in California. California is no longer called California, it's called California because of this Khalifa. In any case, then, they believe that to vote in America is haram because this is kufr. I said, okay, if this is kufr, you go to where you come from and see how much you can vote there. In any case, they used to say that register to vote means register to go to hell. And who are you to tell us that? Register to vote means register to go to hell. This is how they believe and how they actually made Muslims more dysfunctional. So you will see also that there is a big difference between the term Islamic fundamentalism and Christian fundamentalism. And to give you more example, and I want us to understand how these terms are used. And sometimes we use it ourselves without understanding what we are saying. Islamic fundamentalism is connected with politics. Christian fundamentalism is not connected with politics at all. So Islamic, you'll never hear Bin Laden or Zarqawi talk about the attributes of God or whether the Quran is created or not. This is theology. Christian fundamentalism is connected with theology, whether the Bible is the word of God or whether it is infallible and so on. Christians do not talk about establishing a Christian state, whereas Islamic fundamentalists like Al-Qaeda, Taliban, and all these ISIL, they talk of an Islamic state. In other words, Islamic fundamentalism is about politics. Christian fundamentalism is nothing to do with politics. It's about theology, about God, and so on. So this is why we need to separate the two. There is another element here that I need to explain. These fundamentalist groups, all of them are Sunnis. None of them are Shia groups. Have you noticed that? And I'm not saying that all Sunnis are fundamentalists. I'm not saying that at all. There's only a small portion. But this, you look at this, Al-Qaeda, Taliban, Boko Haram, I don't know, Hamas, many others, so many groups, Jamaat-e-Islami and so on, they don't belong to the Shias at all. Because there is a fundamental reason why Shias are not fundamentalists. One of them is, and I'll explain to you, Shias are against the literal understanding of the Quran. We don't say that because the Quran says there is God has a face, therefore God has a face. The Quran is using an analogy. It is explaining through metaphors. Do you understand? Whereas the Shias believe that there is anti-literalism. In other words, you don't take things literally. The fundamentalist groups do. For the Shias, you use reasoning in everything. Therefore, you have Istihad. Sunnis don't have that, but we do. We have mujtahids. What is Istihad? It is the mental jihad, using your reasoning powers. In other words, you do not take a hadith or something literally. You reason things out. There is another reason why we do not have fundamentalists in Shia Islam. This is because of the leadership. In our understanding, leadership is only restricted to those who are mujtahids, who have understood the scripture and the books. They are called the maraja. The Maraji are the ones who lead us. You will never find, for example, somebody in Phoenix or in Toronto amongst the Shia community just giving a fatwa. Because the fatwa cannot be given so easily, my friends. It has to be properly reasoned out, thought out. And the Maraji are very, very clear. There is no way they can agree or accept the killing of innocent civilians. There is no way that they will accept the killing of innocent civilians. And that's why, by the way, you do not find Shia fundamentalists. You find it amongst the Sunnis. And again, I have to emphasize again that I'm not saying that all Sunnis are fundamentalists. Only a small portion of them. Sallu ala Muhammad wa alayhi. To give you this idea of how we Shias believe in preserving life rather than killing, you'll recall what happened when ISIL went to Iraq, what they did to the Yazidis. Those Yazidis were able, and they're not Muslims, by the way, were able to run away. You know where they got, a lot of them got refuge in Najaf. Ayatollah Sistani said very clearly that they should come here and you should protect them. And even the Christians were protected, that we cannot go around killing innocent human beings. Ayatollah Sistani told me, myself, and he told so many others the same thing. He said, do not say that the Sunnis are our brothers, but say they are ourselves. In other words, they're closer than your own brothers. This is the tolerance, the welcoming, and the acceptance of our Maraji. Therefore, you will not find Shia fundamentalists. I do not know whether you are aware of this, which was the first country in the world, the first country in the world which held a candlelight vigil after 9/11. Do you know? Which was the first country in the world which held a candlelight vigil after the events of 9/11? It was in Tehran, in Iran. Because whatever the differences are between the governments, you cannot kill innocent human beings. This is the Shia stand. In fact, many of our ulama came out and said that those hijackers, that those who kill innocent people are not going to go to heaven, they're going to go to hell. For the Ahlul Sunnah, there is a vacuum in leadership. They do not have mujtahids. They have local leaders like Bin Laden and Zawahiri and so on. Because of that, you have anybody can give a fatwa. Anybody with limited knowledge can give a fatwa. See what has happened today. Because of the internet, because of people having very little knowledge, people just go on the internet. The internet can be a blessing. It can be a curse too. People just go on the internet, surf a few websites here and there, a few hadith here and there, and put it together and give a fatwa. All right? Who can do that? Haven't you seen that people just send forward messages? I don't know, Colgate is haram, Coca-Cola is haram, Kit Kat is haram, bread is haram. They want us to starve to death. I always thank Allah for that person who created the delete button on the keyboard, you know. So instead of forwarding it, delete it. Because unless you are 100% sure it is halal for you, the people just keep sending emails after emails. This is haram, I don't know, cheese is haram and gelatin is haram. It is not haram. Who said it is haram? If you're not sure, ask an alim, ask a scholar, but don't just go around forwarding it. But what has happened because of the internet, you've had self-proclaimed ulama, people who just go on the internet, as I say, and they hurl fatwas. See, remember this much, knowledge, in order to gain knowledge, we always used to go to the hawza or to the universities, where those who knew taught those who did not know. Knowledge was always vertical. You go to a hawza in order to learn, or an institution, you learn and then you pass that knowledge to others. But now because of the internet, almost anybody becomes, mashallah, an ayatollah or a marja or whatever. And that's a big danger, because you find that the authority of knowledge itself has been reduced. Many of these preachers, especially amongst Ahlul Sunnah, are self-taught. Haven't you seen, sometimes you go to their mosque, you find somebody who's an engineer or somebody who's a pharmacist suddenly going on the mimbar and reciting khutbah. How come I don't go around talking about accountancy and pharmacy and so on? Because it's not my field. But when it comes to religion, everybody seems to be an expert. What has happened is, and this is a danger, part and parcel of fundamentalism, whereby charisma has replaced knowledge. People who are not even that much knowledgeable suddenly start preaching about Islam. That knowledge is fragile, because in order to be knowledgeable, you need to go to a proper institution. The knowledge, as I said now, has become horizontal instead of vertical. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. There is another reason why Shias do not believe in fundamentalism, and I think that we should also understand this. The reason I'm saying all this is because, especially our youth, many a time they hear about this Islamic fundamentalism and this and that, they read about it on the internet, and they get influenced. Therefore, it's important for us to be very clear. There is a big difference between us and the Ahlul Sunnah, and I'm not putting anybody down, I'm just telling you what it is. This is called the question or the issue of the golden era. Amongst the Ahlul Sunnah, you will always see, they say the golden era is the period of the Khulafa Rashidun, the first 4 caliphs and so on. For us, that history was a very dark part of Islamic history. It was not a golden era at all. Amongst the first 4 caliphs, 3 of them were killed. Umar was killed, Uthman was killed, and Imam Ali was killed. How can it be a golden era when there were civil wars, when Muslims were killing Muslims, not only once, they killed each other so many times during that period of the first 4 caliphs, at the Battle of Jamal, at the Battle of Siffin, at Naharawan. Even there were people, how was Uthman killed? People came and killed him in his own home. The point being that that's not a golden era. Fundamentalists always want to go back in order to go forward. They want to reimpose the old Islam and put it in our present era. For the Shias, we say no. The golden era is not in the past, it is in the future. When Imam Sahibul Zaman alayhi salam reappears, sallallahu alayhi it is only when the Imam reappears that he will re-establish the period of justice and equality. That's why, if you've noticed, we always pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the reappearance of the Imam. Why? Not only because of the Imam, but because of the promises that Allah has said. وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَ الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَنَجْعَلَهُمْ أَئِمَّةً وَنَجْعَلَهُمُ الْوَارِثِينَ. We wish to make those who are inheritors, make them the warithin on earth. It is only when the Imam comes back that we'll have a golden period of justice and equality and peace. And therefore, we do not subscribe to this idea, the fundamentalist idea, that all we need to do is to go back in the past and reimpose the past in the present time. There's a very narrow vision of Islam. For us, the idea of the Mahdi is very central. Plus, there is another reason why fundamentalism does not appear in Shia Islam, because we have what we call a minority consciousness. That is, we were always in the minority. For us, it was a matter of survival. Because we were in the minority, we never ever wanted to go around establishing an Islamic state and killing innocent people in the name of Islam. For us, the main purpose was to prepare the way for the appearance of Hazrat Hujjah alayhi salam. It is because, Sallu ala Muhammad wa alayhi. You see, because of this conflict, and we have to try and reduce the conflicts between the Muslims and us, you find that today Shias, many a time, especially even here in America and in other parts of the world, many of you coming from Afghanistan, you know exactly what I mean. The moment that you know that you are a Shia, you are either attacked or you are out and so on. It happens even here. I've written a book. I don't want to publicize my book, but you're welcome to buy it on Amazon. It's called Shiism in America. Shiism in America. In that, I look at the position of Shias in America. When you go to, for example, the prisons, you go to schools, you go to mosques, almost anywhere you go, you find that the Shias are being discriminated against. Not by all the Sunnis, but by the Salafis and the Wahhabis. For the majority of our history, Shias and Sunnis lived side by side. They lived in peace and harmony in different parts of the world, whether it was in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in my own country, in Africa, in India, in Pakistan. Shias and Sunnis lived together. It is only this rise of the Wahhabi fundamentalist movement that have created so much tension throughout the world. That's why we need to make people understand that we do not believe or accept this idea of fundamentalism. Today, even our youth, many of our youth, when they're on campus, in campuses, if they know you are a Shia, suddenly you are out. I'll give you a personal example. I teach at a university called McMaster University in Canada. I've been teaching, this is my 13th year. Initially, they all welcome me, nice, good, wonderful, a Muslim professor. The moment they knew I was a Shia, can you guess what happened? No. Takim, nobody invites him to speak because he's a Shia professor. I've been there 13 years, not even once have the MSA invited me to speak. They invite others, yeah, but not Takim, because to the extent that they even tell these fundamentalists, not all Sunnis, but they tell others, students, do not take Takim's classes. He's Shia. I'm a good professor. I never give an F- to anybody so far. But this is what they do. And so, therefore, they have this very parochial, and Shias, unfortunately, have been discriminated against everywhere. This is what we have to make people understand of our beliefs. That's why Ayatollah Sistani said, I think we have to explain to people, so do not call Sunnis our brothers, call them ourselves. We've always opened ourselves out to others. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. As the days pass by, the heart cries out for Karbala and the events of Karbala, because it is the events of Karbala that have defined us. We are who we are because of the sacrifices, not only by Imam Hussein, but the ashab, the companions of Imam Hussein. Wallahi, these companions were very noble companions. On the eve of Ashur, Imam Hussein said something just remarkable. Inni la a'lamu ashaba awla wa la khayra min ashabi. I do not know of any better or more worthier companions than you, O my companions. Because the Imam gave them the opportunity to leave. He said, I remove my bayah upon you. These people want only me, they don't want you. Leave me. But one by one, these companions stood up and said, leave you, we will never leave you under any circumstance. One of the first persons who stood up was Zuhair. I've been talking about women, not only the men, but women who influenced the events in Karbala. Even if they were not there, they had a major influence. One of these women that we hardly ever hear about is the wife of Zuhair. Zuhair was an Uthmani. He was a follower of Uthman, not a follower of Imam Ali. But it just so happened that after performing Hajj, when he was going back to Kufa, he was on the same road as Imam Hussein. Zuhair, being an Uthmani, he would not stop near Imam Hussein. When Imam Hussein would stop, Zuhair would stop behind him or in front of him, but not with him, because he was an Uthmani. Imam Hussein heard that Zuhair bin Qayn is nearby. He sent him a message that tells Zuhair to come. Tell him to come to me. Zuhair is having lunch. The messenger of Imam Hussein comes to Zuhair. Zuhair, the grandson of the Prophet, is calling you. Zuhair doesn't know what to do. Me? What does Hussein want to do with me? And who is the instrumental person there? The wife of Zuhair. Look at the woman, this woman. The wife of Zuhair tells Zuhair, the grandson of the Prophet is calling you and you just stand, sitting here eating? Go and answer him. Go and answer him right away. Zuhair goes and talks to Imam Hussein. History doesn't tell us what the conversation was all about, but we hear about it on the day of Ashur. Zuhair comes back to his wife, says, you may leave me now. I'm joining Hussein. I'm joining Hussein. What happened, Zuhair? On the day of Ashur, we hear what happened. Because even before the battle started, two people came in front of the Umayyad army. Two people. Habib ibn Madahir and this Zuhair. And the people were surprised. Zuhair, you are in Uthmani. You should be fighting against Hussein, not with him. What are you doing in Hussein's army? Look at what the reply that Zuhair says. Oh people, I'm not like you. I never invited Hussein. قَدْ جَمَعَ الطَّرِيقُ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَا. It's just so happened that the road joined us. We just happened to be traveling on the same road. وَلَمَّا رَأَيْتُ ذَكَرْتُ بِهِ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. When I saw Hussein, I remembered the Prophet. And I knew that fighting against Hussein would be fighting against the Prophet himself. This is Zuhair. Zuhair was one of those who stood up on the eve of Ashur. One of the first ones. When Imam Hussein said, you may leave me, one of the first ones who stood up was Zuhair bin Qayn. Look at the transformation and change in this person. From a person who was an enemy of Ali ibn Abi Talib to one who was prepared to give his life for Ali ibn Abi Talib. Zuhair says, leave you, Mawla? How can we leave you? What answer will we give to the Prophet? Yabna Rasulillah, even if I was to be cut to pieces, even if they kill me many times, I will still not leave you. So what is this one death? Asadarani Hussein, on the day of Ashur, when Imam Hussein was praying, one of the persons who was defending Imam Hussein was his Zuhair bin Qayn. These so-called Muslims would not even let Hussein pray in peace. As Hussein was praying, they would fire arrows at Imam Hussein. And who was taking these arrows on his body? Zuhair bin Qayn was one of them. And he was the one who Hussein trusted most, because he was a very noble and brave fighter and warrior. So when Imam Hussein lined up his army in front of the tent before the battle started, on the one flank was Habib ibn Madahir. On the other flank was Zuhair bin Qayn. In the middle was Abbas. This was Zuhair bin Qayn. But look at the role of the wife. Look at the role of the wife of Zuhair. It did not end there, because Zuhair's wife went back to Kufa. When she heard that Zuhair has been killed on the plains of Karbala, she approaches the slave of Zuhair and she says, oh slave, take this kafan and put it on the body of Zuhair. Bury Zuhair and put this kafan on his body. After a little while, the slave comes back to Kufa with that kafan. He does not put it on Zuhair's body. The wife says, oh slave, I told you to give kafan and dafan to your master. Why didn't you do it? What does the slave say? Oh Bibi, if you would have seen what I saw in Karbala, if you would have seen what I saw in Karbala, you would not have put kafan on your husband either. He says, what did you see? He says, I saw the bodies of Hussein and the companions of Hussein with no ghusl, no kafan, no dafan. Oh baby, Azadarana Hussein, I want to talk to you about another person. A person who was noble, one of those who was a companion of the Prophet. His name was Muslim bin Awsaja. Muslim bin Awsaja was a great warrior, a great companion of the Prophet. He was one of those in Kufa who, when Muslim came, Muslim bin Awsaja supported Muslim bin Aqil. He helped him. But on the day of Ashur, on the eve of Ashur, when Hussein removed the bayah of one of the people who also stood up with Zuhair, was Muslim bin Awsaja. He was old, 70 years old we are here. At least 70, even more than 70 years old. But he was very courageous. And he was very, very faithful. Muslim bin Awsaja was one of those companions who actually led the army into Azerbaijan. He was very much respected. On the day of Ashur, so a Muslim comes to the grandson of the Prophet, Yabna Rasulullah, it is now my turn to give my life. Hussein embraces Muslim. He says, Muslim, I cannot stop you from going. Muslim goes and fights a noble battle. Finally, Muslim falls on the ground. Habib Hussein goes to Muslim. Oh, Muslim, I give you the tidings of heaven. Muslim draws Imam Hussein closer and he says, Muslim now is on the verge of death. He says, Yabna Rasulullah, I have a wasiyah to give. Hussein says, what is the wasiyah? Muslim says, the wasiyah is not to you. The wasiyah is to Habib ibn Madahir. Call Habib close to me. Habib comes to Muslim and he says, oh Muslim, what can I do for you? Habib is close to Muslim now. Muslim is on the verge of death. What does he do? He points to Hussein and he says, oh Habib, do not leave him alone. Make sure that when Hussein dies, you should be dead also. Ala la'natullahi al-qawmi adh-dhalimin. سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. مات الحسين.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Inshallah, we'll recite a few verses in memory of Hazrat Qasim ibn al-Hassan alayhi salam. میرسد نوبت خورشید شدن آهسته، سپر غربت خورشید شدن آهسته، نقل هر صحبت خورشید شدن آهسته، قمر حضرت خورشید شدن آهسته، زودتر می رود آن کس که مهیا باشد، مرد آن است که با سن کماقام باشد. آسمان چشم به این واقع حیران دارد، باز انگار که دریا تب طوفان دارد. ماه در دست خدایینه و قرآن دارد، پسر شیر جمل عزم به میدان دارد. دل پریشان خزان بود بهارش آمد، دست خط پدرش بود به کارش آمد. می رود تا جگرش را به تماشا بکشد، بین میدان هنرش را به تماشا بکشد. تب مستی سرش را به تماشا بکشد، باز رزم پدرش را به تماشا بکشد. قصد کردن ببینن تجلایش را،
ضرب دست حسنی قامت رعنایش را، خودش امام شد و جوشن او پیرهنش، انبیا پشت سرش لحظه عازم شدنش، گر گرفتند همه از شرر سوختنش، دشت لرزید ز فریاد انا ابن الحسنش. دل به شمشیر زد و ازرق شامی افتاد، حمله ای کرد و زان خیل حرامی افتاد، هرچه جنگید آتش تاب و توانش را برد، سوخت بارید آتش تاب و توانش را برد، باز لرزید آتش تاب و توانش را برد، ناگهان دید آتش تاب و توانش را برد، دید دور و بر مرکب همگان ریختند، دور تا دور تنش سنگ زنان ریختند، آنقدر سنگ به او خورد که آخر افتاد، بیرمق بود و از این فاصله با سر افتاد، سعی می کرد نیفتد ولی بدتر افتاد، عمه می گفت به خود جان برادر افتاد، به زمین خورد به دور تن او جمع شدند، گرگ ها بر سر پیراهن او جمع شدند، بدنش معبر سمها شده ای وای حسن، کمرش از دو جهت تام شده ای وای حسن، چقدر خوش قد و بالا شده ای وای حسن، پهلویش پهلوی زهرا شده ای وای حسن، ابو از سوز جگر داد زد آه ای پسرم، من چگونه بدنت را ببرم سوی حرم، دست زیر بدنت تا ببرم میریزد، بدنت را که به هر جا ببرم میریزد، مطمئناً پسرم را ببرم میریزد، نبرم جسم تو را یا ببرم میریزد، خیز قاسم که ببینی چقدر تنهایم، وای از خجلت من پیش امانت هایم، الا لعنت الله علی القوم الظالمین و سیعلم الذین ظلموا ای منقلب ینقلب.
احسنتم ما شاء الله. السلام عليك يا أبا صالح. السلام عليك يا أبا صالح المهدي، أدركني. جمله ها متعلق به آقا امام زمان حضرت بقیت الله الاعظم هست. مثل این جمعه چنین روزی منتقم آل پیامبر حضرت بقیت الله الاعظم انشاءالله ظهور خواهند کرد. همینطوری که حضرت مولانا جناب دکتر تکیم فرمودند امام زمان صاحب زمان ظهور خواهند کرد برای برپایی عدل و قسط و منتقم آل پیامبر خواهند بود. این عزای حسینی رو به ایشان حضرت بقیت الله و مادرشان حضرت زهرا سلام الله علیها که با واقع صاحب عزا هستند تسلیت عرض می کنم. السلام علیک یا ابا صالح المهدی، ادرکنی. ای نگار نازنین فاطمه، یادگار آخرین فاطمه. ای نگار نازنین فاطمه، یادگار آخرین فاطمه. نام زهرا بهر قرآن شد نگین، نام تو نقش نگین فاطمه. یا ابن الحسن یا صاحب الزمان، بقیت الله فی ارضه، آجرک الله لمصیبت جدک الحسین علیه السلام. السلام علیک یا ابا عبدالله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك، عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله الآخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. همه السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين اگر کورایم خدا را میشناسم اگر کورم خدا را میشناسم محمد آن نبی را میشناسم علی مرتضی را میشناسم من آن بنت نبی را میشناسم حسن آن مجتبی را میشناسم حسین ابن علی را میشناسم حسین ابن علی را میشناسم من آن مشکل گشا را میشناسم من آن بنت علی را میشناسم من این خاندان را میشناسم حسین مشکل گشا را میشناسم عصر عاشورا همه رفتند و زینب تنها مانده زینب علیها السلام با دلی شکسته و پشتی خمیده برای دیدن برادر به سمت قتلگاه سمت گودال قتلگاه رفت همین گفت و برفت زینب به ناله حسین او برادر جان فتاده گلی گم کرده ام می جویم او را به هر گل میرسم می بویم او را حسین جانم حسین جانم حسین جان همه حسین جانم حسین جانم حسین جان حسین جانم حسین جان. گل من یک نشانی در بدن داشت، یکی پیراهن کهنه به تن داشت. اگر پیدا کنم زیبا گلم را، به آب دیدگان می شویم او را. حسین جانم حسین جانم حسین جان. حسین جانم حسین. دل من طاقت دوری ندارد، حسین من به جانش سر ندارد. حسین من کجایی جان جانم، حسین من کجایی جان جانم. شوم قربان رویت جان جانم، شوم قربان رویت جان جانم. حسین جانم حسین جانم حسین جان. حسین جانم حسین جانم حسین جان. همه سینه. حسین جانم حسین جانم حسین جان. حسین جانم حسین جانم حسین جان. گلی گم کرده ام می جویم او را، به هر گل می رسم می بویم او را. گل من یک نشانی در بدن داشت، یکی پیراهن کهنه به تن داشت. یکی پیراهن کهنه به تن داشت. اگر پیدا کنم زیبا گلم را، اگر پیدا کنم زیبا گلم را، اگر پیدا کنم زیبا گلم را. به آب دیدگان می شویم او را، به آب دیدگان می شویم او را. حسین جانم حسین جانم حسین جان. حسین جانم حسین. حسین جانم حسین جانم جانم حسین جانم حسین جان. دل من طاقت دوری ندارد، حسین من به جانش سر ندارد. حسین من کجایی جان جانم، حسین من کجایی جان جانم. حسین من شوم من جان جانم، شوم قربان به رویت جان جانم. گل گم کرده ات خواهر منم من، گل گم کرده ات خواهر منم من. غرور سینه ات خواهر منم من، غرور سینه ات خواهر منم من. حسین جانم حسین جانم حسین جان. 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 سلامات.
خوشنودی امام حسین بلند صلوات. در دشت را آمد آن رهبر آزادی، در دشت را آمد آن رهبر آزادی، آزاد و توان بردن ره در بر آزادی، آزاد و توان بردن ره در بر آزادی، در دشت را آمد آن رهبر آزادی، در دشت با رمز تبسم فاش می گفت و به هر گامی، با رمز تبسم فاش می گفت و به هر گامی، امضای من از خون است در دفتر آزادی، امضای من از خون است در دفتر آزادی، در دشت را آمد آن رهبر آزادی، در دشت آزادی، زور است و گلوی من از خنجرت ای گردون، زور است و گلوی من از خنجرت ای گردون، برم رگ استبداد با خنجر آزادی، برم رگ استبداد با خنجر آزادی، در دشت را آمد آن رهبر آزادی، در آزادی، عباس و نجات شر بر نافه طوفان ها، عباس و نجات شر بر نافه طوفان ها، در نشت فرات آمد آن لنگر آزادی، در نشت فرات آمد آن لنگر آزادی، در دشت را آمد آن رهبر آزادی، در دشت آزادی، اکبر دم جان دادن گفتا به پدر خوش باش، اکبر دم جان دادن گفتا به پدر خوش باش، سیراب شدم مستم از ساغر آزادی سیراب شدم مستم از ساغر آزادی در دشت راق آمد آن رهبر آزادی در دشت آزادی از زیر سم اسبان قاسم به عروسش گفت از زیر سم اسبان قاسم به عروسش گفت با یاد تو خوابیدم در بستر آزادی با یاد تو خوابیدم در بستر آزادی در دشت راق آمد آن رهبر آزادی در دشت راق آمد رهبر آزادی با رمز تبسم پاش می گفت و به هر گامی با رمز تبسم پاش می گفت و به هر گامی امضای من از خون است در دفتر آزادی در دشت راق آمد آن رهبر آزادی در دشت راق آمد آن رهبر آزادی صلوات ز صدر زین افتاد ز صدر زین افتاد شه سپه سالار بگفت خواجانم بیا علم بردار بیا علم بردار مرا توی سالار بیا علم بردار مرا توی سالار بیا شنید حسین مولا شنید حسین مولا صدای معصومش بگفت به قربان صدایت ای دلدار بگفت به قربان صدایت ای دلدار بیا علم بردار مرا توی سالار بیا علم بردار مرا توی سالار چرا به خون غلطان چرا به خون غلطان شدی تو ای ماهم ز زیر نیها خست فدایت ای سالار ز زیر نیها خست فدایت ای سالار چرا به خون غلطان چرا به خون غلطان شدی تو ای ماهم ز زیر نیها خست فدایت ای سالار ز زیر نیها خست فدایت ای سالار بیا علم بردار مرا توی سالار بیا علم بردار مرا توی سالار حسین بگفت جانا حسین بگفت جانا فدای چشمانت حسین بگفت جانا حسین بگفت جانا فدای چشمانت روی چو ماه تو چرا شده خونبار روی چو ماه تو چرا شده خونبار بیا علم بردار مرا توی سالار بیا سالار کنون روم جانان کنون روم جانان و پیش زهرا جان حال تو برگویم با هنجر خونبار بگویم ای مادر بگویم ای مادر دشمن هجوم آورد ز بعد شاهدین بر زینب غمبار ز بعد شاهدین بر زینب غمبار بیا علم بردار مرا توی سالار بیا سالار بگفت مرا بگذار بگفت مرا بگذار عمرم بسر آید چیسان برگویم جواب آن طفلان طاقت دگر نیست و طاقت دگر نیست و تا که ببینم من این مشک خالی را از پیش من بردار این مشک خالی را از پیش من بردار بیا علم بردار مرا توی سالار بیا علم سالار بگفت مرا بگذار بگفت مرا بگذار عمرم بسر آید چیسان برگویم جواب آن طفلان طاقت دگر نیست و طاقت دگر نیست و تا که ببینم من این مشک خالی را از پیش من بردار این مشک خالی را از پیش من بردار بیا علم بردار مرا توی سالار بیا علم بردار مرا توی سالار بیا علم بردار مرا توی سالار صلوات
السلام عليك يا رسول الله يا خاتم النبيين السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين يا سيد الوسيين السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين السلام عليك يا أبا محمد الحسن بن علي أيها الزكي الناصر الأمين السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين بن علي أيها الغريب المظلوم الشهيد بكربلاء السلام عليكم يا أصحاب الحسين السلام عليكم يا أزواج الحسين السلام عليكم يا أنصار الحسين السلام عليكم يا ذريات الحسين السلام عليك يا أخت الحسين زينب بنت أمير المؤمنين السلام عليك يا أبا الفضل العباس بن عمير المؤمنين. السلام عليكم يا أئمة الهدى يا علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى الرضا الغريب الغرباء ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي. السلام عليك يا مولانا يا صاحب العصر والزمان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان. الأمان 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 من فتن الزمان سيدي، عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك ورحمة الله وبركاته.